doesn't get old.
No, so good. My favorite is this one. It's so good.
I love when it's like the featuring Bunchu comes on and it goes in the I don't know what Payne uses to make those, if it's an AI or if it's just Canva or what it is, but I laugh like I'm there'll be a day when it just becomes like numb, and that'll actually be a sad day, but like it's still like I don't know. I know it's coming and I still laugh every single time. It's like seeing a movie you like.
Yeah, I was in Denver last week, so I didn't get to see it. So that was my second time seeing it, and it'll probably take 100 more before that gets old. So amazing, Payne. Thank you. It's living out my dream of being on like a 90s sitcom.
Yeah, it's awesome. I need to get the. I have been meaning to kick up a like full on Billy thread at some point or Billy video. So I need to get some like stats and downloads from you at some point offline when I put this thing together. But I gotta ask, like, I don't know if maybe it's just like my bias of seeing it, but it seems like even under the suboptimal conditions of only betting one site, of betting right before when the lines are least efficient, Billy seems to be doing quite well. We had the Cavs victory on Sunday that I know you texted me about. I was excited. I was watching that with some friends.
The playoff bound Cavs, Steve.
The only team in the playoffs. I got to see if McNeil's tweeted. McNeil, who's like an amazing Cleveland shit poster. Like, even if you don't like Cleveland.
He's a good follow. If you like sports, you need to follow McNeil. Yeah, he's following me, Steve. This is a new follow for me. I guess he follows 500,000 people, so I shouldn't be surprised, but I didn't realize he was following me.
Yeah, he might follow you because he followed me when I came back over from Cleveland Twitter, but he's a good, I've known him since Cleveland Twitter days. He's funny. He was a good thing, but yeah, he always would be like teams that have like 30 wins, and it would be like the Cavs and then like all the other teams on the other side. So he probably has his qualification playoff graphic, I bet now. But you, good.
No, I know we're supposed to talk AI this morning. I feel like I've got to pass because Bunchu is, with Billy Betts now, I feel like we've got a free pass to extend our sports conversation a little bit, whether it's about Billy Betts or what I really want to talk about this morning is what the heck the Giants are going to do. Are they going to trade up for Cam Ward? They lost out on the Matt Stafford deal, and I'm curious if he's got any takes on Tyler Warren. Is he going to go the Brock Bowers route or the Kyle Pitts
route? Small hands. Little worry there. Small hands.
Smells like cabbage. Carney's Austin Powers reference.
I got you. I got it.
Wow, I'm old. Holy cow, dropping Austin Powers references this morning. Tyler Warren is the GOAT. He's going the Brock Bowers route, not the Kyle Pitts route, I think. We'll see. But that's, very Homer mentality. But the, Penn State, fun fact, every Super Bowl ever that winner has had a Penn State player on it, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool. McNeil did share this, by the way. Have you clinched a playoff spot? Yep. No, it's March 5th. Lol. So this is like his typical, like he does these very regularly. He's again, an all-time follow shit poster, even if you don't like Cleveland sports. Other things I thought you would appreciate, Bunchu, is because it is kind of semi Penn State related. My friend's kid, I was telling Crocs Maxie in the war room yesterday, my friend's kid has, I aspire to have the sauce that this kid has. So he was wearing these powder blue Cavs jersey and flat brim hat, which I could never wear. Like, I think this 8-year-old could beat me up. And he shows up and I was just casually cogging with him. And I was like, baseball is his favorite sport. He plays basketball. He plays football. I'm like, what position do you play in football? And he just goes with deadpan, totally serious. He goes, I play running back. I'm sort of like a young Saquon Barkley. Like, as if like that was like the best running back in the NFL who jumps over people backwards. Like, he said 70-yard runs like every game. Says it deadpan as if like, no. Like, I'm sort of like a young Saquon Barkley if I were to describe my game.
That's so funny. I'm like a old refrigerator Perry, I think is more my speed. Holy cow. Dude, that's some insane confidence. I like it. I dig it.
Yeah, kid's got sauce. I respect it. I've seen him in action too. He's an athletic kid, but let's dive into so we'll hit Billy Betts, and I want to dive into the world of AI because I know we've been very Billy heavy, which I love, but I know one of the values we get out of you is you stay connected to the market. So Billy, give us an update on like latest performance, how you're feeling about it so far, the amount burned, things like that, and then we'll we can talk some other AI.
Yeah, I think to your point originally, like, yeah, we are betting essentially one market, one sport on one exchange, and we're betting at tip. So like that is the most efficient the markets will ever get for that game at that time. As of yesterday, as of last night, we had bet $180,000, which is not bad for 14 days in. We had returned $191,000, which is a ROI of 6.39%, cumulative profit around 11 and a half, 12K. So it was doing really well. And then Billy decides to go and take all the worst teams last night. He goes 0-4, and now we've come back to earth a tiny bit here. So but we are 14 days into the experiment, and that doesn't include obviously what we've already bought and burned. So we have bought back and burned 855,000 Billy tokens, which is 0.008% of the supply, which is kind of fun. In 2 weeks, almost 1% of the supply, and that'll keep going as we scale up. So this week, as I mentioned when we were talking last week, we're going to be ready to introduce like NBA prop betting and NCAA tournament betting here coming up, which is going to be cool. I think that will help kind of start churning a little more volume and hopefully smooth out the kind of NBA variance. It is the thing that, like, prior to going 4-5, or sorry, probably prior to going 0-4 last night, he had 4 out of 5 winning days. And you'd never know that by last night, right? Like everybody remembers the losses. So that's just the world in which it goes. But it's been awesome so far. So I think like one of the cool things that we are continuing to develop is like, what does Billy look like as? And I think this goes to not only our project, but anybody building in this kind of AI agent / crypto space. And it was one of my main takeaways from Denver was like, they need to really truly be autonomous at some point, right? And like, I think there's this big thing going on right now between kind of AI powered agentic workflows versus like, what does it mean to actually have an agent be truly autonomous? And I think as we continue to go down of like, what does Billy look like a month from now, a year from now? It is this autonomous better of sorts, right? And we're not aiming here to just be this kind of AI powered workflow betting quant shop. The experiment is, can we give an autonomous agent $100,000 and have him turn profits across, decentralized sportsbooks? I think that's the fun part of it for me. Like, obviously, I live and breathe the betting stuff. So all day, every day, I'm thinking about kind of winning strategies. But the next part is like, how do you build the being, right? Which is another like, how do you do our process autonomously with a machine, right? Like that's kind of the cool thing. And a year ago we couldn't even be talking about that level of operation, but the models, and which we'll talk about in a little bit here, is probably like, I mean, they're just so far and away better, and they're getting better every day. And it's allowing for you to start to see the like the promise of this thing that will actually be autonomous and not just an AI powered workflow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, makes total sense. By the way, do us a favor, request upstage so people know you're talking, and just turn down the mic
on
sorry. That one. All good. No, it's but I was gonna say, like, that makes total sense. And hearing kind of the way that you are approaching it is, I think, super interesting to me, where it's like you're looking at it almost as like, look, like you're building in public, like truly you're building in public as most obvious and iterative as possible. Sorry if we're getting an echo, by the way. I actually plug my headphones in because it gets like, I can't turn it all the way down. But yeah, I actually I feel like it's exciting. So like, what other things you went to ETH Denver? And that's actually the direction I was going to take it. So good segue into there. What conversations did you have ETH Denver related that kind of inspired you from an AI perspective? Because I imagine there was a lot of, like, ETH Denver is a weird one. I wish I had gone almost, even though it was so close to Paris. So I didn't, and I want to hang with the kids, and I had stuff. But it's like, there's NFT projects, there's DeFi
I actually
projects.
think I think you would love ETH Denver. I came away from ETH Denver like, oh, this is a vibe. Like a ton of side events, but the side events were like not parties like you would have seen at an NFT MIC. They are like workshops and panels and really focused networking things. And so I thought it was my first time at ETH Denver. I would, it's like gone to the top of my list. And I was with Brett, our dev, and he lives out that way. So he's gone to every ETH Denver. And he basically said, you know, from a builder perspective, it's that and consensus, and that's where you want to be. But yeah, the vibe was very builder heavy, which was awesome. And because it's about like, you know, the whole week was, like I often feel very crazy with these ideas that we're talking about, right? Like the normal, like my normal friends would not get them. They think I'm a nut job. And like this is a place where all of those people kind of converge. And so it's really kind of high level thinking of the ideas that we spend a lot of time here talking about. And that's what I really liked about ETH Denver. From an AI perspective, it was actually way more AI heavy than I had anticipated. A lot of stuff from like, you know, frameworks and how to manage data and you know, communication layers and wallet layers for agents and things like that, which I thought was really cool. Really great panels and workshops just around how to build agents and what they can do for the world of like DeFi. And then I had some really just interesting conversations. So I met with, you know, from like a Billy perspective, I met with Ejaz from the Bankless podcast, and he sat down with me for like an hour. And I'll tell you right now, dude grilled the shit out of me. Like,
Really?
oh yeah, it was intense. It was really awesome. It was such a great conversation. And but like what I thought was the best part about it is like this was somebody who is very you know, dialed into the space in a way that I don't believe is like a LARP or KOL type of way, right? Like he's really interested in the tech perspective of it. And so he grilled us really hard on like, hey, how does this work? How is it autonomous? And like, what does the future look like for that type of build for you guys? And I think like his point was what I was kind of saying at the top, where you know, a lot of these AI agents at the moment feel crypto with AI slapped on top, right? So it's kind of the thing that Steve has talked about on the show a lot, which is like, why does an agent need a token? Well, it might not, but everybody's doing it because they're crypto first and slapping this new shiny thing on top of it to do something, right? And the something is in most cases a like AI powered workflow, right? And I think like that's cool, it's fun, but I think the world of agents where we're headed, when you think of like, oh, how are the like academics and the main labs thinking about autonomous agents, it is really on that kind of autonomy level of can it do a thing, it can not only do a thing itself, but can it have other states in which it records its, you know, understands what it did and learns from that, and then has memory on top of that to improve and self-improve over time. So it really is like trying to create a thing that like a toddler, right? And it's and that's kind of, I think, what in those folks' opinions is like where like that where this stuff needs to be. I think the overall space at the moment is maybe not that, right? And especially in the I would say the crypto AI space. And so I think one of the advantages that we've had so far is that I spent 2 years like detached from the crypto part of AI. So like I'm approaching this all with that innately because that's what I found so fascinating about it, right? And like the fact that we could try to build something that is not only going to make a bet, but then it's going to go and check how that bet did, analyze it against all of the other things it did, use some advanced, you know, statistics and grade its own performance, and then try to learn from that the next time and improve itself. And like that's the magic thing that I think we're trying to build. And then, you know, all the other sports stuff in there will come over time as well. But I think like you know, just from like the guts of it all, that's kind of where I see the space needing to go next, both in just mostly in the crypto space, because I think that's what we're seeing from the AI only space. Like with OpenAI, they kind of leaked a little bit yesterday of like, hey, we've got these agents coming for enterprise, and they'll be like coders and general assistants. And I think I read something that they might charge up to like 20K a month for their coding agent or something. And like those are going to be things that operate like that, like we just described. And so like that's where the world is going, and we need to be there with the crypto part as part of the main like gamification and tokenomic model, not just to have.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that makes me, that just gives me, it gives me very, very strong excitement in where things are going. It gives me a lot of faith there. So that's interesting. And interesting to hear that you got grilled, but like, prepared for the grilling, right? Because you actually are
Grilled
doing
in a good
something.
way. Yeah, grilled in a good way, right? Like he was super interested in what we were doing, and basically wanted to say, all right, like look under the hood and say, is this what I think it is? And the answer was, yeah, like it is now, and it's going to be even more so in the future, right? Like so luckily, it's so funny. Like, I had my laptop with me, and that morning I had spent so much time, and it's not even something I like normally do, but I got up really early that morning, and I was just like coding away at stuff to build this type of thing, and like make the next version of what we're doing into this autonomous being. And so I coded out all the bunch of this stuff, and I was like, I can see it here, but I wonder what it looks like if I was looking at a diagram. So I had AI write me like a mermaid graph of what the system looks like, of what we'd coded. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I sent it out to our team chat. I was like, this is what it actually looks like, blah, blah, blah. And normally it's not something I had really ever done. I would just have kept it to myself in my little, just until it was ready. And he basically asked to see something like that, and I had it, and it was like, I was like, oh, okay, well, that was serendipitous. So but very cool. So it's funny.
You looked like so prepared, like such a baller at that moment when you're
Dude,
just like,
I was.
funny you ask. And then you're like, it's pretty cool.
I was, but then it's funny. I had sent, I don't know if I talked about this last week or not. I don't think I did, but a really good example from like a Billy perspective of kind of how this works is, right, we have this sports tensor partnership, and sports tensor kind of feeds in the base ideas of what Billy might think would happen in the games that day. And then he goes out and does all of his work on top of it. And by the time the game comes, decides if he wants to place a bet or not, right? And I think this was either last Friday or Saturday after I had left ETH Denver. So we must not have talked about it. But Sports Tensor tweeted out their bets for the night prior, just to say like, hey, the month is over. Here's how we did. Here's what we took last night. And they showed all their bets. And so I took that and I compared it to what Billy did the night before. And so they had bet 6 bets straight from their model. And Billy decided only to take 3 of those. So after all of that, or like he basically gets fed, hey, here's 6 spots you should look at, decide which ones to play. And he only decided to take 3 of them. He went 3-0. One of the ones that he didn't play lost. One of the other ones he didn't play ended up winning, but they were, actually, was it the Cavs Celtics game where they were down like 20 in that game and came back and won? Yeah, it was that one. He decided
20,
not to play.
but who's counting? Yeah.
Yeah, right. They were down 22 at some point in the game, right? So even though they won the game, it was kind of probably a better to stay away from that game, right? So I just thought that was like an interesting example that I was able to share freely, because normally we wouldn't be able to show like what they have on any night, but they showed it. So we were able to kind of like showcase what we were doing on top of that I thought was really interesting, kind of real world example of like the difference, right?
I love that. I love that. It's like our model's better. Here's why. That said, like, okay, so let's zoom out to the larger AI space. Cause like I'm obsessed with Billy. I continue to follow William. I continue to see all the bets that are being made. The streams are always fun to see people sweating on. And I love when like there's a game in play. It like in a weird way, it's actually, I'll just be watching a game, have no money on it whatsoever, but Billy does, and it gives me a reason to like it, which I know because the token burns or whatever. What else is, like, you mentioned all these new models coming out. You mentioned it continued to advance. Everybody I talk to in AI is telling me it's going even quicker than they expected, but I don't know what that means because I'm not diving into the weeds. So what's going on that's the latest just in the world of AI, the different models? I know that ChatGPT is now giving me like thinking prompts and also telling me it's doing some sort of deep research and maybe it's going to limit me in something like, so I don't know. There's a lot going on in the world of AI. So give me the lay of the land. It's been a while since we had a full on update.
Since we like really last talked, it's been kind of insane. So like we, even a couple weeks ago, we had Grok 3. Have you tried Grok 3?
I have not played around with Grok 3. I'm not a big Grokker.
Oh,
yeah,
wow, really?
I would recommend it. So like, here's the thing with Grok 3. So Grok 3 is, matching up with, for like some of the GPT advanced like reasoning models. It's got the deep research mode. It's got the advanced thinking mode. It is, I would say, much less kind of censored and guardrailed.
Is that, am I wrong for doing this? It's become my, just for like, whereas before I used to defer to Chat GPT for just like I don't want to say Google search because it's really more than that, but it was like my daily grinder, like where I go first. Totally. And if I need another solution, I go somewhere else. Grok 3 has replaced Chat GPT for me as far as where do I go first when I need an LLM? It's like,
yeah, it's topping like a lot of the coding metrics.
And I have a quick question. Is it because I pay for premium? Is it only like,
no, it's free right now. I
the
think
entire thing is free. Everyone that has X has the full access to Grok 3. Anyone who downloads the standalone app, it's full access. There's no like tiers to it.
No, you don't even. There may be something coming, but right now it's free for everybody, which I think is a kind of tactic for him to try to pull away from ChatGPT subs. But you could also go to x.ai, I believe it is, or it's xai.com. Which, hold on, let me see which one it actually is before, because that if you make the wrong choice, that could end poorly potentially. And let's see, it is. It's just grok.com. So if you go to grok.com, you can use Grok.
AI is a thing too.
Well, that's probably their homepage. And then you go to grok.com and Grok will take you to, or that'll take you to Grok 3. What I like about Grok 3, the context window, it's 1 million token context window. So when you have something like a code base and you run up against context limits of, for me, who's not like a traditional developer, I have to give it as much context of what I'm doing as possible. So at some point, your programs or whatever, they get too big. And, I would say, I think Claude has like the lowest context window, even though I think it's the best coder. OpenAI, like 01, 03, have like a 120 context window, 1,000 token context window, and Grok has a 1 million token context window. So like that, Steve, like that's like you could throw full book in there and it would be able to take in all the context, right? So that is clear, that very much so one of like the most important things to like get the right output is give all the context you need. So I like Grok for that. It's got all of the same bells and whistles from like the reasoning, advanced thinking stuff, the deep research, and I also think it's a little less guardrailed, so that could be a plus or a minus depending on how you approach it. People are, the feedback of it being a little less guardrailed is like, well, that's kind of a potentially dangerous thing, and it may force some of these other labs to kind of be more lax with safety to keep up. So TBD on the outcome of that, but we'll see. But yeah, so Grok 3 has been, a pretty impressive one that, I wasn't really like, I shouldn't fade Elon on that stuff, but like, I wasn't really sure how it was going to come out compared to like the OpenAIs and Anthropics. And I've been impressed thus far. But we've got model updates everywhere. We've got Grok 3 was kind of the first one that came out last week. Claude 3.7 Sonnet came out. So we were previously on 3.5. This one has kind of blown me away. I think Anthropic still They are my daily driver cap still right now. So it's my go-to. The thing that I hate about it is their chat limits are too small, right? So like I hit my allotment very quickly
Same.
on Claude, and that's
Do
like
you
the most
pay?
frustrating thing.
Should I like what? And I like, so I'm assuming it's because I just use the free Claude. Is
I'm
it,
on the 20 and I still hit
you still
mine
hit it?
really fast. Yeah. And it's very frustrating to do that. But if you
It is
it's not
good.
too hard to use the API to do stuff. But so like if you built yourself kind of like your own little chatbot that you could use the API through or there's other platforms that you can put an API key into and use Claude 3.7 like that is a better option than just using the Claude platform itself, because
It's
you'll
become
run
my
into
favorite
that stuff.
coworker. Does that make sense at all? It's
Oh,
become my favorite coworker.
100%.
Whereas like
Yeah.
Grok for quick questions or something I might have previously used Google for, if I'm actually sitting down and like I need, like, true story, like, hey, I need help updating this pitch deck. And the conversations, the how it spits things out, like it's my favorite co-working agent.
I totally agree with that. I think that is pretty spot on to how I feel about it. I also just like Claude's personality is my favorite of the three of them, and just like how it speaks to
Seems
me.
normal.
Yeah,
Seems normal.
right.
The
It's
other ones
like,
seem like
yeah.
they're trying to do something. They're trying too hard to be a certain personality. Claude
Yeah.
just seems like again, it just seems like it's a normal coworker.
Yeah, by the way, if you're interested in like the personality stuff of Claude and like how much work they put into it, there was that like 5 hour Lex Friedman with the Anthropic folks a couple months back from it had the CEO on it, but one of the segments he interviewed the woman who literally spends all her time on the personality of Claude, and that was really cool to listen to. So
If you think
um,
you're a nerd and you don't
oh
think
yeah.
there's a bigger nerd than yourself, go listen to that 5 hour Lex Friedman podcast with the
Yeah.
Anthropic crew. I like to consider myself somewhat intellectual. I feel like I probably comprehended about 3% of that 5 hour podcast.
But I still like listened to the whole thing. I loved it. Like the personality thing was super compelling to me. Just because like that's what we're that is such a important factor of how frequently you use it, I think, right? Like I like it because you like you said, Cap, it feels like a coworker that's speaking to me in a normal way, right? Like which is a good segue for the next new model. But so Claude 3.7 though is interesting for a different reason. So they are calling this a like a hybrid model. So you can select on the platform, you can select kind of you know the regular mode, and then you can click like the advanced thinking mode, which we've seen from a bunch of these other ones. We just said Grok has it, OpenAI has it, but where this is interesting is in the API you can actually use it in a hybrid way, in which you can delineate like, hey, I want to make the API call to Claude 3.7, and I want to allot X amount of tokens for like advanced reasoning and thinking, or I could do none, right? And so being able to delineate right in the same kind of programming call does a lot for you for building agents, right? Because there's some parts of building an agent you want a quick answer or a quick determination on something or a quick help, parsing things. And then some, like let's just say Billy, right? He's got a data feed and he's got a threshold of which something will qualify for a play. So I want that to be really fast. But then after he makes his play and he loses, I want him to spend time thinking about the result and why he might have gotten a bad result, etc. Right? So you can kind of separate the calls of when he does what all within the same model, which I think is really cool. Prior, you would have had to maybe use two different models in your agent for those kind of results. So I thought that was really cool. I've been using Claude 7 as kind of, or 3.7 is kind of my daily driver right now. But then the last big model one is just came out most recently. I don't know. This one got mixed reviews, which was GPT 4.5. So GPT 4.5 from OpenAI came out like on the heels of 3.7, a couple, maybe it was Friday or something. And the, I haven't played with it enough yet. The thing that they are touting that is interesting about it is it feels the most human of like a worldview and understanding perspective of like when you speak to it, it really kind of understands your intent and like
I'm laughing
it
as you're
has a
saying
worldview.
this. I'm sorry, I'm laughing as you're saying this because yesterday I actually let me pull this up real quick because you're talking about like GPT understanding. Yesterday I was trying to edit a video. Oh, I hope I didn't delete it. I was trying to edit the video that I did about the A16Z stuff, and I was trying to like get it to help me out with my actual video editing of it because it was annoying. God, I can't find it. I must have deleted the chat. And I literally was like, I think that the first thing I said before I even gave it a prompt is I said, I fucking hate Adobe Premiere Pro. And then I was like, I was like so frustrated. I'm like, I still can't fucking find it. This program sucks. And it's like the way it responded to me was like, when I'm like really fired up and like I'm in a bad mood and Dawn's like responding to me, be like, it's frustrating. You're not wrong. Like, it's giving me. So when you talk about it understanding, I was dropping, I still can't fucking find it. Like I was just like unloading. I almost apologized to ChatGPT because normally I'm very polite. And I was like unloading because it's such a non-intuitive program, but it is the best program you can use to edit things and it, has all these features. So it's just funny you say that particular part today because I rarely lose temper or get upset or just dive into it. And I just let it wasn't ChatGPT's fault. I was just unloading about Premiere Pro and it helped me through it. I found it, but it was like, I should see if I could find it if it's not on there and I missed it. But I was just like losing my fucking mind on it. And like, it was
That's
like
so funny.
understanding and how it responded. It was responding in a very like logical way.
Yeah, it's really funny to hear you say that because I agree. And then but that's what this new model is kind of its calling card is it's not going to like blow away benchmarks on, coding and things like that like the past ones have, but he describes it as kind of their biggest and their biggest, most robust model in terms of like worldview and understanding the world, which is kind of goes back into how it speaks back to you as well and how it understands your intent and conversations, which I think is really interesting. Now, however, they released this in like a preview mode, both on like the main desktop platform, all their apps, and the API. I think the biggest piece of feedback people have given so far is like it is the most expensive thing that they have from a like a API call by like 10x. Like we're talking $7 per million tokens out on like your Claudes and your other GPT models. This was $75 per million tokens out on an API call. So like that is somewhat prohibitive. Obviously prohibitive depending on what you're using it for and building apps with. And I anticipate that will all come down over time as well. But it kind of says maybe like this was a little bit of a rushed release because of all the other news coming out. So maybe they weren't ready to really make it prime time, but felt they had to. They seem to always try to be staying relevant and things like that. But so those were like the three big ones. And then don't sleep on Google. They launched new multimodal models over the last couple of weeks that are really good. One of the ones that they can literally stream in video and watch a video almost in real time and have understanding of that stuff, which I think is super amazing for building apps with and doing, content creation and analysis and things like that. So don't sleep on Google. Google is also beta testing. I just saw an article this morning on their AI only search engine. So we've seen kind of like these AI powered searches with Search GPT, Perplexity, stuff like that. But Google's now kind of testing a version of AI only search for themselves. So we'll see how that stacks up between, traditional Google and what's out there right now. So that's kind of all. Oh, one other, like, if you're super nerdy, but again, this is like agent building stuff. There's something that is going around. This is not like new. Anthropic released this when they did, like a couple months ago. They released like a open protocol for something called MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. And essentially, what you can do is you can configure it to like tap into any amount or various different data sources, like, and you can do this right on Claude. So if you actually set up the MCP on Claude on their desktop, like, you could give it access to searching the web through this. You could give it access to looking at your GitHub repository through this. And so, like, it didn't seem to catch on right away when they dropped it, and now it's all people are talking about in the last week. There's just so much MCP stuff, and I think like this is something that's really interesting for agent tool building as well, because it is all about how do they access data, how do they access programs and things like that to actually be effective. So if you're a builder out there and you're not paying attention to MCP, you should check that out as well.
So I guess like I ask this periodically, and I feel like the answer kind of just changes based on where we're at. How does this all end? Like, these models all can't sustain, and obviously Google's model is Google's model. So either they're going to give up on it like Google Plus, or they're going to go ahead and grab another one and do that. But they're not giving up on AI, I imagine. Is it a matter of like the partnerships, the integrations? Like, what is it that, because they're like, I can't imagine that there's going to be, 7 to 10 LLMs that we're all, playing around with in the future. I imagine they're going to have to be winners in this thing, and it's going to be like a duopoly, or there's going to be like 3 or 4. How does it end? Like, how does this advance to
It's
the
a
point
good
where we have
question.
winners?
It's a good question. Like, I'm not quite sure where it ends, because like, there's also the open source stuff, which is obviously not as cutting edge as the like main models, but it has the potential to be over time, like DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek kind of changed, like, put a scare, I think, in the whole market with these frontier labs and things like that, because of how novel their approach was. Um, so like, even open source is really interesting, but I think like you're, I think you're right in the sense that I don't think we're gonna have hundreds of these things that are um, winners. But where I actually think it's probably going is like, well, what is AGI going to be for us? And it's less, I think, about like this. Oh, here's a model that is AGI. It is that the models get so capable and smart, and from both like just an innate knowledge and capability standpoint, but also the ability to kind of follow instructions and reason and tool call and use tools, that it's going to be, I think, less about like, oh, what is the model that wins, and more so about like, these models get so smart that agents become the way we experience AGI as like a consumer, right? Like, or a user of it, where you're going to have this field of like really narrow agents. And I would call Billy Betts a narrow agent. He does a specific thing, bets sports, and right now it's super narrow. He bets NBA on Polymarket, right? But or you'll see kind of general service, general purpose agents, and those will be powered by kind of different models for different use cases, for different types of resources that are available, and things like that. So I think like, I agree with you that there's probably not going to be 20 winners, but I think you will see a world in which you're going to prefer, from a cost and capability standpoint, a Google for the thing you're trying to accomplish with your agent, versus a GPT 4.5, which costs you $75 per million tokens, right? So I think there will be kind of this a la carte thing that happens, where you can pick a bunch of these models that are going to serve you different purposes for what you're trying to do or create. And then I think you'll see like the agents done for you stuff from the main frontier labs. So they're all incentivized to build the best thing in general, right? So the arms race is not going anywhere in that standpoint. And I think like you're still just going to see the giants win because they have the most distribution and the most data and the most all like, you know, all of those things that it's going to be really hard to like flip those. But the open source movement is really real and interesting as well.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, and I think it's weird. I feel like if you have the money and time, like chasing those general models might be like really sexy right now. But I do feel like the specialization, what you're doing with Billy Betts and other things like that, like that's so much more interesting to me. Where it's like, I mean, I texted you the other day, for example, like I'm making some videos, I need motion graphics, you know, or if I need graphics in general, it's like someone who specializes in that, I would pay more than I should a month for something that could create me really good motion graphics versus if motion graphics get introduced to GPT and it's like, oh yeah, like they do it too. Just use our motion graphics. Like, yeah, it's like sort of like, I don't know, like GPT's image engine sucks, at least when I use it.
Totally. No,
And
it does. Yes.
oh, and just like Midjourney works much better for me. Well,
Yes.
Midjourney just does that. Like that's what they do. And so it makes sense that when I try to get a prompt for Midjourney, like I get a better prompt asking ChatGPT to give me a Midjourney prompt than I
Totally.
do giving that exact prompt to ChatGPT to get what I'm looking for. Like I'll be like, I want a crypto related thing, and it's like Bitcoins. I'm like, yeah, no, make it more general. I don't want Bitcoins. I want regular coins. And then it's like the biggest fucking Bitcoin I've ever seen in my life, just up in front and center. So I think you're onto something that this sort of more specialized model, like, did you see that in ETH Denver? I hope we see more of that, I guess.
Yeah, well, definitely, and like a lot of some of the crypto blockchain stuff was really focused on helping you like fine tune your data and manage your data, right? So like I think that's part of what makes these specialized narrow models really interesting as well. The other point that I was just going to make was just like, you know, remember a year ago, everybody was like, oh, your startup's just a ChatGPT wrapper. Your startup's just a ChatGPT wrapper. Well, fast forward a year and it's like, well, maybe the wrapper route was the way to go, right? Because you can build these specialized things for consumers and let the model companies build the models, right? Like your app improves every time they improve. And there is this massive arms race that is happening at exponential speed. So just do the best thing for your niche and do it with on the backs of those giants because it's just going to get more affordable, easy to use. And they're building the capability for you, right? Like they're doing the hard work for you. And yeah, maybe you got to fine tune, but like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel with these things. Like I'm not going to be sitting here with Billy Betts training a foundational model. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to use what's out there to do the job I need to do. And the models now are way more capable than they were a year and a half ago. Right. So I don't feel the need to have to do that. It's time. And it's not only, it's just prohibitive from a cost standpoint. And I think like we're also seeing, to your point, Steve, is like what is the moat in those types of things? So they are just in this massive arms race, and that's going to keep happening. So for you as a builder or user, it's like find the one that does the best thing for your need, and there will be this kind of we're entering, I think, the world of like narrow agents that are useful for utility, right? And then I think from there, the next thing you see is kind of these like maybe AGI-ish feeling, general purpose, multi-tool type of things.
It would be more like an app developer a decade ago, instead of building their app and making it the best app, be like, oh, I need now to go build some hardware. I need to build something to compete with the iPhone. And oh, by the way, I need to build a massive wireless network to compete with Verizon and that sounds so idiotic, right? It doesn't make any sense. And I think you're right. Like
there'll be spots where it'll be great to fine tune stuff. Like we're gonna be fine tuning things, but even that is a costly endeavor, right? So you need it's hard to do, and it costs a lot of money to do. So, but training your own foundational models is like not a thing. Like you shouldn't be the normal person should not even have that on their radar, right? Like use what's out there. But yeah, I think you go from like this or really narrow agent, and I think we're starting to see the agents be actually capable of doing things and learning and reasoning now. And I think the next is you feel these kind of more general purpose AGI feeling things.
That's awesome. No, I get excited about that because the app analogy is a great one. It's like I have like what excites me is like the tools and time it takes to build anything you want to do are changing. And your point about the moat, it's like, Billy Betts, you're the moat. Like, you guys are the moat because you actually understand and have done this before. It's like, I can't, like, I saw somebody the other day on the timeline talking about getting like a betting telegram going. And they're like, yeah, like, we love to bet. And it's like, that's great that you love to bet. And if it's just being degenerate and having fun, that's cool. But the moat is ultimately, is there a world where these specialized ones, the moat is actually the people who
Totally
have the skill sets in the first place? So there's almost this like flip, like AI is going to, and that's almost it's not AI taking your job. It's someone using AI or building AI.
I totally agree with that. I think like the analogy of I said before about like building a toddler is not different than what you're talking about, right? Like, parents do this, right? Your special sauce for your child is the thing that you bring to the table. And I think that, but that's always kind of been the way the best SaaS products or the best products that you use work. They're built by people with domain expertise that can that are really passionate about the thing that they are building and want to solve those problems for somebody else. I think this is no different, right? It's like, okay, anybody could use an agent framework to spit sports betting takes, but there's a lot of art and science behind what it takes to actually be profitable doing that. And so where does that come from? That doesn't get created out of thin air. That has to be kind of trained and taught to your agent, right? And like, so all those strategies kind of get birthed from our team, and then it's up to us to build the thing that can learn from those base strategies and get better than even we are. That's the ultimate goal, right? Like, that is the goal. Otherwise, I'm not accomplishing anybody. Just follow my bets and whatever, right? Like, so the goal is to eventually make it better than us, but you got to teach it something first. And I think it is very analogous to like raising a child, where you're like, all right, the goal is for you to be better than me in every single way. And I am, I'm good at some things. I'm really bad at others. I have warts and I am not perfect. And the goal is to get you better than me at the thing at some point, right? Like, that's how I kind of feel about it.
Yeah, phrasing on special sauce there. But the it's interesting. The thought process there, as far as the way you're teaching it, it's almost like the conversation of like when you have like, when we had like a really good designer or a really good worker at any of my jobs, and everyone would be like, I wish I could clone this person. Like, I've gotten that on feedback for like, I wish I could clone you. It's like, well, guess what? Now you can. And it's like, that person now who's a great designer or a great whatever the thing is, I guess like I didn't even think about it because it was like a year and a half ago or a year or something ago I was having this conversation. But when I was talking to the former CMO at Progressive, and he's like, hey, check out this AI thing I'm working on, the person who's building it with him is basically cloning him, as I understand it, as a CMO, and basically being like, you as a CMO have the brain and the history here. So why don't we just program you into this? And then when somebody wants a dynamic marketing campaign, it's going to be different than if they put into any other model because you're the data set. And so it's an interesting thought process. I guess it makes sense, but it also is something that it just didn't fully connect with me until we're having this conversation right now. So I love that. I love that thought.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. I was going to say, that said, like, anything else we missed today? I know we're coming on the 10 o'clock hour. I know no ApeCoin ecosystem update anymore, at least for the time being, while we're in between the sponsorship stuff. Anything else we missed on AI that you wanted to make sure we hit on today?
I think we covered most of the things we were backlogged on. So by the time we have this conversation next week, there'll be 1,000 other things to talk about.
I know,
which is fun.
It feels like every week you're exploding at the seams with new information and new tools. And I love the fact that like you're so genuinely passionate about it that like we go from like the super wide, like, to the super narrow applications to the how is this thing powering. It's a great way to stay educated, and it's an awesome thing every single week. So glad you had a good ETH Denver getting grilled, and thanks for jumping by as always.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.